All right, Joe Sena, man, I've been looking forward to this conversation. I appreciate you carving out some time for us. How's it going on your end? Where in the world are you right now?
I'm in Boston and I am so fucked. I'm so upside down. We had to cancel 325 events across 45 countries. This pandemic has probably hit us harder than from a business perspective, not from a life-threatening perspective. Disaster.
Yeah. Are you doing anything this year? Do you have any races?
We just put on something called the Spartan Games. My team created it. It was on the farm in Vermont, which is where we started Spartan. And it took 12 of the best male athletes around the world, 12 of the best female athletes from around the world, CrossFitters, triathletes, ultra runners, sprinters, Spartans, and they went head to head across like a dozen disciplines. Each one of those people were experts in those disciplines, right? From strong man and strong woman competitions like Highland Games stuff to sprints up the mountain to an ultra run to Spartan Race. Wrestling, believe it or not, legit wrestling with an Olympian there. And I can't tell you who won, who lost, but I can tell you that the media was so rich. The videos were so unbelievable. It's an unbelievable product. So I'm super pumped about that. It sucks that I didn't have 20,000 people there.
Mm-hmm.
The other bright spot is China. I had 3 weeks ago, I had 10,000 kids at a Spartan race in China.
Oh, wow.
China's back in business. They didn't even skip a beat. I'm so glad I've been teaching my kids. My wife and I have been teaching my kids Mandarin for I don't know, 10 plus years now. And they speak fluent Mandarin. So if that's going to be the only country in the world that's open, we are set.
Yeah. Well, they got enough people for you to pull from there.
Yeah.
So where's the Spartan Games? Is that something, where can people check that out? Or is that something
You're not going to be able to find very much about it right now. We're editing all the tapes. It's kind of clandestine. We're not telling people who won or lost. We're waiting for the shows to come out. So
Okay.
you'll probably get the first episode in 2 or 3 weeks.
Where will that be?
I have no friggin' idea.
Yeah.
I don't know, somewhere
On the internet somewhere.
on the internet, somewhere in our digital ecosystem. Just look for Spartan Games in 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, you mentioned you probably have been hit harder or as hard as anybody from an economic perspective, from a business perspective during this whole crazy year that 2020 has been. I feel like there's going to be a lot of listeners who resonate with that. 2020 has been a shit year for a lot of people, a lot of dads. Hard time to be a dad right now if you're supporting your family and your business has gone to shit. What kind of has your mindset been through this? And I just love to understand, just to kind of extrapolate that maybe for some wisdom for some other folks who are in a similar spot. How are you charging into this and how are you facing it?
I learned very early on a mantra that stuck with me from March 13th forward, which is the standards don't change. So pandemic, no pandemic, like we hold ourselves to standards. We wake up early. We don't walk around in pajamas every day. We do our workouts. We take our cold showers. We eat healthy. The kids are still studying, even if we have to do it online. Nothing has changed. If anything, the things that have changed is economically being punched in the face, obviously with the business. People not coming into the office. I'm in the office now, trying to get folks to come back into the office. It'd be easier to get people to the moon or Mars and get them to go back to work. But yeah, I think you got to live by this mantra of the standards don't change, and you probably got to take even more care of yourself when it comes to health and wellness in a situation like this. I will tell you, the good news is you and I are not storming Normandy Beach. It is not the Great Depression.
Right.
We are not building a railroad from New York to California and getting attacked by, Indians. So not that I have anything wrong. I wish we didn't attack the Indians. So nothing negative there. I love Native Americans, but come on, this is like a practice pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at history, people have had it way worse than we have it right now. So you're damn right there. So I want to talk a little bit about and just kind of your experience as being a dad. And, you've had a pretty storied career, obviously ups and downs, and your background starting a pool company that grew into, $1 million business, going then to Wall Street, founding Spartan and death races. Like, you've done a lot. And, you have bought out some of your biggest competitors. So I'm just curious though, where in that journey were you when you became a dad, when your first child was born, when your first son entered the world, kind of where in that storyline were you?
I was 5 years into creating Spartan. It was a hobby. My main job was in finance. I was living on the farm in Vermont. I had just on a farm, some chicken, and I was 5 years, but I was going to be a big business. I certainly didn't think it was going to be this big. I was feeling. Oh, can you hear me? It says my internet connection is unstable. You got me?
I got you. Yeah, got choppy there for a second, but we got you now.
I was feeling pretty on top of the world, right? The 07 to 09 financial crisis hadn't started. So when that first baby showed up, I was feeling pretty unstoppable.
Mm-hmm. So when the baby arrived, did you continue to feel unstoppable? Did that shake your world up a little bit? What was your mindset then, with baby number one in the world?
I mean, I'm thinking back, maybe I'm fooling myself, but I remember my father calling me and saying, "How's the baby sleeping?" And me responding immediately saying, sorry, I kept my phone on. I know that pisses people off listening, but I gotta just check it for calls. I'm sorry.
No worries.
So I know my dad said, "How's the baby sleeping?" And I immediately responded and said, "Baby's sleeping great." And my wife punched me and she said, "I'm up all night, every night. What are you talking about?" And I had no clue that, like, it didn't rock my world at all because my wife was doing everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just being on the farm, it felt like I was like a settler in the 1800s, right? Wife's got the baby. There was a bat showed up in the house, a bat. My wife had to kill the bat with a broom while she was breastfeeding. So I don't know, it felt kind of cool.
Yeah. It's an adventure.
It was an adventure. I only really get involved with the kids once they're like two years old. I mean, I'll carry them around as a little peanut, like a football. But I'm ashamed to say I didn't really do a ton of work in those early days.
Sure. Well, yeah. And, once they get two and they start talking, there's all of a sudden a whole new realm of changes and challenges. But so you mentioned that you were on the farm at that point in time, maybe a little bit of a different setting than where you grew up in Queens. Different feel, different experience. I'm curious, maybe you could share just a little bit with the listeners what your upbringing was like in Queens and some of your experience and what impact that had on who you are today.
Yeah. In neighborhoods around the world, wherever a kid grows up, we aspire to be whatever it is we're attracted to around us. So like in parts of Africa, I heard a story where these great runners were coming from. They wanted to find out, like, is it the water? Is it the food? Is it the training? And what they found was the kids just aspired to be like the guy up on the hill that had a Mercedes and won the Boston Marathon. The kids were chasing that dream. For us, in my neighborhood, as stupid as this sounds, like, everybody was into organized crime. And so, the bosses, the mafia bosses, they had, rolls of $100 bills in their pockets. They had nice cars. They had respect. They had nice suits on. And, even though you didn't completely understand what it was that they did, there was under your breath, in your brain, subconsciously, you kind of knew, and it was cool. Again, this sounds terrible that they kill people for a living. So that's what we wanted to be, but certainly the boys in the neighborhood. And to be that, you started to learn as you got older that you had to do your time, whether that was going to jail, whether that was doing, making money illegal. You had to do something to earn your bones. And so, you grow up and then you have children like I do, and you look back and you say, well, I don't want my kid around any of that. That was ridiculous. But on the other hand, you also say, gee, your kid could be book smart, your kid could wrestle every day, your kid could do all these sports, but where's that grittiness? Where's that resilience that they're missing from being in the neighborhood? In ancient Sparta, they would grab the kids at 7 years old, and for a minimum of 13 years, that child trained his ass off with one article of clothing on the side of a mountain away from his parents. And the policy was you could eat as much food as you want, but you got to steal it. And if you get caught, you get beaten. So figure out a way to steal it and don't get caught. And I scratched my head for a long time saying, why would you want to teach young kids that? And it's exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's that street smarts. It's not only that kid has to be tough and resilient, but they got to be able to navigate the world. And so we shouldn't teach our children how to steal, but it would be nice to figure out a way, to give them all the nice things we afford our children in the first world, but also somehow give them some of that grit and resilience and fend for yourself attitude, because we're raising adults. We're not raising children. We're raising adults. They're going to be adults soon. And you got to give them the toolbox to be an adult.
Yeah. So raising your kids on the farm, pre-2020, maybe not really having any economic challenges from their perspective. They've got what they need. How do you instill that? How do you take them back and give them that grittiness that you learned back in the neighborhood, where they're growing up in a totally different world than what you were?
It's my fault, because I think about it, right? Like my 15-year-old just turned 15 today, should be working in a local, Indian restaurant or some restaurant where he's got to bust his ass every day. But instead, selfishly, what do I have him doing? I have him wrestling and studying math and Mandarin. And so, I should probably give up a little bit of wrestling time and get him fending for himself a little bit, right? So that's what you got to do. And I'm the inhibitor to that. And I recognize that, and I got to fix it, because we don't want to end up with a bunch of kids that are really book smart and really good as delicate athletes. Like, what the fuck? The likelihood that any of the people listening to this have children that are going to the Olympics is slim to none.
Right.
And so what do you they're learning some things on the wrestling mat. They're learning some things in the soccer field, my daughters, but they'll learn a lot more in that Indian restaurant. I chose Indian for no particular reason, just because I figured it'd be harder to work in an Indian restaurant.
Yeah, no, I hear you there, but I think there's definitely, sports have played a big part of kind of my upbringing, and you learn how to get beat up a little bit and how to lose and come back from it, but it isn't real world. And especially these days, my daughter is 9 months old, so she's a ways away from being in the sports team yet, but I know that just from other dads that I'm talking to, it's not quite the same a lot of times, with participation trophies and things, as it was back when I was younger, where you lose and you got to deal with it. But I think you bring up some good points about work ethic. Tell me a little bit about your kids' camps that you put on, because I feel like there might be something there that nourishes some grittiness.
Yeah, I mean, even the kids' camps that I put on this summer, where I took 22 family and friends kids, and I just beat the shit out of these kids for 14 days. I mean, up and down the mountain, carrying rocks and ice cold water, thousands of burpees, thousands of push-ups, thousands of rope climbs, insane volumes of work, limited food. Even that, it was still cushy. They got to take a shower at the end of the day. They slept in a nice farm. It wasn't like we were in Kazakhstan working on the roads, So and they were losing their fucking minds, these kids. I had kids from my own youngest daughter, 7, up to like 16, 17-year-old kids and they were losing their minds. They were texting their parents, "Get me out of here. This guy's nuts. He tricked us into this." So, the other interesting thing was like they wanted their phones every night more than they wanted food. It just goes to show you the problem we have with devices. So yeah, I built a little bit of resilience and grit with the camps, but it's all manufactured adversity. It's not like the real thing. So I'm not complaining about it. It's the best we got to make the kids tougher. But I had kids come up from the inner city, that one parent households, no parent households. These were tough kids. And they came up and I said to them, "Look, I'm going to give your charity $10,000 to any kid who could do 4,000 burpees in 24 hours. These kids came up. You're going to see the video of it. They blew through 4,000. They did 10,000 burpees each in under 24 hours. They were the nicest kids I've had to the farm. They have nothing. I mean, nothing. So it just goes to show you a little bit of nothing in our kids' lives would be a good thing.
Yeah, it's such a dichotomy because, you work hard, you bust your ass so that you can give your kids, a better life and better opportunities you might not have had, or at least, repeat some of the opportunities you had if you did grow up in a more fortunate situation. But the downside of that is, how do you instill this work ethic? How do you give them that grit? And that's something that, I think a lot about with my young daughter is, as she gets older, what are the things that we're going to intentionally put into her life and try to have her experience to help with that. And so I look at guys like you who've done things like the kids camp, who are thinking about these things. I mean, you say your kids don't experience it, but I'm sure I've heard you talk about them working out with you at 5:30 in the morning and stuff, that's going to rub off and that long term, that'll have some positive effects.
I hope so. I mean, this morning was an absolute battle in the house, getting everybody up.
Well, they're up, and that's more than most people can say. So as you built your business, especially, once the kids were around, and you did have the family, and this went from being a hobby into international massive success. How do you view, whether you call it work-life balance or integration or whatever, however you view it, how do you kind of tackle that with having your family time and being intentional with your family, but also building this massively successful business?
I've created a term called work-life integration. My dad integrated work in his life. I think my mom would have said it was terrible. My sister and I, he never had a moment where he was free. He was always on the phone. I think anybody looking from the outside would say it's terrible, but I think if you want to focus on family, which you should, I'm not I want to focus on family, you are better off with a 9-to-5 job. If you want to kill it at work, if you want to own your own business, if you want to be like a high level exec at a business, I'm sorry, there's no way around it. You've got to do work-life integration, not separation. And so that means any vacation we have, we're at a race, right? It's just all integrated. We work out together at Spartan events. We get on Zoom calls to get it's just all part, it's just part of our life.
Right.
And so the whole family has got to be part of that job.
So how do you think about that then with in terms of maybe not the time spent with them, but the relationships you're building and the intentionality? Is there even a heavier focus on how intentional you are to make sure that you're fostering those relationships and have that relationship with your kids that you want?
I mean, I'm wrestling the boys every day.
Mm-hmm.
Tackling them. We're chasing each other around the house. My house is insane. I got a little dog. I got a bird. I got people coming over, videotape. It's just an insane house in a good way. I definitely could be more intentional, spend time, hold my daughter's hands more, but that's not who I am. I'm not proud of that. I should be better at all that. My whole persona, my personality is just insanity. Right? Yeah. We're doing burpees, we're climbing a mountain, we're waking up early, we're taking cold shower, whatever. So I don't know what that produces later in life, but I'm not sitting around That's just not me. I'm not good
But
at
it
that.
sounds like you're doing it with them and you're pulling them into those things, and you're still, it's not that you're not there. It's that you guys are just having a crazy life together. Is that?
I'm always there. I mean, yeah, if I could ski with them every day and do Spartan races with them every day and hike mountains with them every day, yeah, we do it together.
So, I heard another story with you where your wife had you watching the kids one day, and you're supposed to just be at home, make sure nobody got into too big of trouble. You ended up a couple hours away with a tattoo. Can you share a little bit about that story?
I thought you were going to tell another story, but
We could go there too. I don't know what the other one is.
the other one, I don't know if I ever told anybody the other one with Charlie, my youngest son, but actually it's really funny on the tattoo. That is really funny. So you see this? For those, I don't know if you do video as well on this podcast, but if it's audio only, there is a Oscar Mike mask that I'm holding up. Oscar Mike is a call signal in the military, and it means on the move. We're going to be on the move. And so I took my daughter, and we went to this event. I don't know if it was Labor Day event. We went to Chicago. We drove 2 or 3 hours outside of Chicago, and we met the founder of Oscar Mike, Noah. And Noah and I sat down. He's in a wheelchair. He had come back from being deployed, and him and his buddies were driving a pickup truck. He was a week away from getting married, and they got in a car accident. He ended up paralyzed for life. A week later, his wife drove off the road and died in a car accident. His soon-to-be wife. He somehow pulled his shit together and started an organization called Oscar Mike. And the idea is we're going to be on the move. We're in wheelchairs, we're missing arms, we're missing legs, but it doesn't matter. We're going to be on the move. And I was going to the opening of his like retreat center, this house that somebody had donated. And he was going to have folks come that were recently missing arms, legs, paralyzed, etc., to teach them how to be on the move, how to shorten the duration of taking a shower or cooking a meal or whatever, because it's hard. They don't know the tricks of the trade. Anyway, I was so moved. I brought my daughter with me. We were so moved by this day. And at the end, just randomly, I said, hey, Noah, do you have a tattoo of your new organization, the name? And he said, no. Do you have a tattoo of your organization, Spartan? I said, no. He said, well, if we ever run into each other again, we'll both get tattoos. And we laughed, and I left. A year later, I was at West Point, and sure enough, I was with my daughter, and there was Noah. And he said, hey, Joe, we got to go get those tattoos. Because at West Point, there are tattoo parlors every 11 feet. And so sure enough, we went into the tattoo parlor. And when I got there, he had already started. And he had literally taken up his whole arm, his shoulder. And I was thinking like we'd get like tiny little tattoos. And my daughter was like, X-Nay, no. And I ended up with a tattoo on my calf of Oscar Mike with the Spartan logo. Came home, my wife wanted to kill me. You'll get a tattoo for anybody. I said, it's not anybody. This guy went through a tragedy. But anyway, tattoo.
Nice. What about the other story? Is that one you want to tell?
Charlie, my youngest son. At that point, I had 2 boys. We hadn't had the other 2 babies, had the girls. Very, very snowy day. I'm home with the boys. My wife's getting out for the day. Like she never gets to escape at this point. And I decide to take Charlie skiing. I'm gonna pull him with a rope because at this point he's like 3.5 years old. I'm gonna pull him with a rope up the mountain, right? And then turn around and I'll snowshoe behind him and I'll keep him from going too fast. Well, he keeps waving with his hand for like, let go of the rope, let go of the rope, let go of the rope. And I'm like, Charlie, you don't know how to ski. We're in this fight. Let go of the rope. I finally got so furious for 20 minutes listening to this that I let go of the rope. And he just takes off. And he flies into the air. He hits a tree. right?
Oh,
Now he's got the helmet on, he's got everything on, but his face is bleeding. And so I'm like, fuck, my wife's gonna kill me. So I'm carrying him. And every year we put on this death race on the farm. And sure enough, during the death race, competitors leave stuff in the woods that I sometimes find. And I stumbled upon the handle of a wheelbarrow sticking out of the snow. So I dug the wheelbarrow out. I put Charlie in the wheelbarrow and I wheelbarrowed him back to the house. By the time I got back to the house, he was passed out. He had blood all over his face. And I got to the house and I thought, it's cold out. It was like 20 something degrees, but he's in gear and he's sleeping. There's no sense in me waking him up. Let me let him sleep. He just flew off a mountain into a tree. So I left him in the wheelbarrow and I went inside.
Outside.
And I made lunch inside. And my wife came home at that moment and she found Charlie in the wheelbarrow, blood all over his face, and she lost it. And so I thought that was the story you were asking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine why she was so upset there. That's hilarious. Well, a lot of your parenting stories and the things that you're sharing, you mentioned that you don't know if your kids are going to have grit, but I'd be really amazed if they didn't end up having grit through that. What are ways that you recommend, if you're talking to some other dads that and they're like, man, I want to make sure my kids have what it takes. What do you tell them? What recommendations do you have for other dads who want to make sure their kids are tough?
I don't think we could ask our kids to work hard enough. Like, I think if anything, most of us don't have our kids work enough, period. And I think we're teaching them helplessness. We just have to remember we are raising adults, right? Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having a camera issue. I'm listening, but figuring it out. Give me 1 second. There we go. Back up and running.
Good?
Yep. Sorry about that.
I would say we don't push our kids hard enough in general. And we just have to remember we're raising adults. And we have to prepare them for the worst because life's going to be friggin' hard. And they've got to be able to work on their own, think on their own. They've got to know to work out every day. They got to be able to wake up early. They should go to bed early. Like, all the things we know are required to live optimally. We got to force our kids to do that. And so most of us are teaching our kids helplessness. Oh, they can't do, oh, that's too hard. Like I said to my neighbors the other day with this virtual schooling thing, 2 days a week we go into school and there's a huge line because there's no buses. So everybody's driving to school. I said, drop the kids off 3 miles from the school, make them walk. And that was like I was killing children. It was like, it's 3 miles. No big deal. And by the way, there's a bunch of parents that are going to be in car, like seeing them. So it's no issue. Anyway, I think we teach the kids helplessness. I think we could all use a little dose of tough, a little dose of hard on the kids. And if the kids cry, so be it. They're going to cry when we're gone. That's my advice. I don't have to tell any parents listening to go easier because we're all going too easy.
Yeah. What do you think has been your biggest challenge in fatherhood and just, going through the experience of trying to raise respectable, hardworking kids? What's been your biggest challenge that you've had to overcome?
I think it's what we talked about before, which is my gut, my DNA, my legacy hardware and software wants me to protect them. What am I protecting them from? There's no lions, no tigers. They're not going to war. We have it pretty friggin' easy. What am I protecting them from? So I would say my biggest failure is not pushing them harder.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, you probably, with some of your experience and ability to push your kids and put them in these situations to challenge them and bringing their friends in and family friends too, to challenge their kids, might give some people some ideas. I don't know if everybody should go throw their kids and their friends in the woods for, 14 days and beat them up. But I think that under the right circumstances, it could do a lot of good. So if you could go back though and talk to yourself, right, when, your son was a young kid before the skiing incident and the wheelbarrow, is there any advice you'd give to yourself at that stage of just around being a dad and parenting?
I mean, I think like I said, I could be harder. We could all be harder. We could be intentional with putting obstacles in front of the kids. But I think to what you mentioned before is I need to, definitely need to hold, somebody had said to me a long time ago, you should do, you have 4 children, once a week, go out to dinner alone with one of them.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great idea, and I haven't delivered on it. So I think what you said before is right. I think building that one-on-one relationship, whereas I'm just driving them and pushing them and sticking them in wheelbarrows and making them meet folks that have harder lives than they do. But I could use a little one-on-one time. I need to be better at that.
So you just said you have them meet people who have harder lives than they do. Is that something that you're intentional about? And what's the thought behind that?
Well, I think I study I call it the journey to success. No matter how you define success, you're going to go through the valley of hell because nobody achieves success easily. It requires work. In the valley of hell, 90% of people quit. That's why there's one Elon Musk, one Steve Jobs, one Thomas Edison, except 90% of people quit. The people that stick it out are able to change their frame of reference, change their perspective. And at that moment where you're in the valley of death and, you're on your 999th light bulb that hasn't worked, you're out of money. You're trying to get this electric car thing to work and the short sellers are killing you in Elon Musk's case. And in Steve Jobs' case, they're out of money at Apple and it looks like they're going to go bankrupt, right? At that moment, the naysayers are piling on. They're telling you shouldn't have done it. You've mortgaged your family. You've done everything you could using business examples. If you're able to change your perspective and reflect on at least I'm not living in Siberia. At least I have my fingers and toes. At least we're not in Normandy Beach, right? You go down the list. You have that ability to have gratitude towards what you do have versus resentment towards what you don't. You're most likely one of the few that are going to dig your way out of the valley of death. So perspective's a big one. Now, I was recently in the last few days, this is fresh off the presses of my brain. I was recently thinking of a chart that would depict something around what we're talking about here, which is if you can visualize a horizontal line on a piece of paper, and let's just say that you've never experienced anything below that line. Below that line would be pain and suffering. Could be mild. As you get further and further below that line, it gets more intense, the pain and suffering. However you define pain and suffering in the example we're playing with here. Above the line is like happiness, joy, success, more money, whatever. If you've never experienced anything below the line is like you grew up in a cushy house, you've been bubble wrapped, you got whatever you wanted. Naturally, what happens is you're chasing everything above the line. Why would you chase anything below the line? Right? You want a nicer car, nicer house, more friends, better people following you on Instagram, whatever they are. You want stuff above the line. You'll never be happy because it's never enough. If you dip below the line, like the great philosophers would say, 2,500 years ago, the Stoics, etc., if you purposely or not purposely dip below the line and experience pain, you are happy just getting back to the line. Yeah. You just want to get back to the fucking line, right? So I think perspective is really important, and I think in that example, we should practice poverty. We should practice suffering. We should, manufacture some adversity and go below the line. That's fresh off the presses. I've been thinking about that the last few days.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense, especially with, the events you put on in the races. People we're living in an era where you have to seek out that area below the line. Oftentimes, sometimes you might get pushed down there for a little bit, especially if you're living in America and you're listening to this podcast right now. Chances are you've time above the line and a lot of it. But I think that's probably why people go out and go do a 13-mile race where they're in the mud and crawling under barbed wire, going into ice water and doing these things that you're never going to experience in day to day. You're not going to experience going to the gym, and, you might get jacked doing your workouts, but you're not going through hell like that. So I think that you're in the business of pushing people below the line so that they can come back to the line and be appreciative of it.
That's right. 1,000%.
So that's something that by introducing your kids to people who have it harder, you're showing them what life is like under the line.
Below the line.
Yeah.
Right. Like my wife's not going to let me run out of food in the house and really take them below the line.
Yeah.
so I've got to I got to do it through the looking glass.
Yeah, I feel that. So, Joe, any other thoughts or things that you might want to share with some of the younger dads who are listening to this, who are just starting off on their journey of fatherhood? Anything you would want to share?
You got to model it. Model it. If you want your kid to smoke cigarettes, then make sure you're smoking cigarettes around them, right? If you want your kids to be a runner, make sure you're running with them. Whatever you're expecting your kids to do, you got to be doing it alongside them, and they got to see it. That doesn't mean you have to force them to do it. They need to see you doing it.
Amen. Yeah, I believe that. So, Joe, where can people find you? I know you got some cool new things going on. You've got Spartan Nutrition is a push for you guys. Tell us a little bit about that and maybe where people can check out what else you have going on and follow along with your journey.
Yeah. So the Spartan Nutrition products instantly make you a great parent.
There you go. How about that? You can stop listening to this podcast right now. Don't listen to another damn episode. Just get the nutrition.
I'm always leery of I'm going to stand on a soapbox. I'll be selling like a snake oil salesman here, but my mom was really into like health food, vegan, plant-based. And so I come from that world, and it just drives me nuts that at wrestling tournaments or even professional athletic games, we're seeing all this Gatorade, all this garbage that people are drinking, the Red Bull, the Bangs, the Monster energy drinks. And so it's always been bugging me. And I happened to be in Sparta, Greece, 3 or 4 years ago, and on the side of a mountain, true story, I see these farmers picking this plant off the side of the mountain. I'm like, what is that? And they go, oh, you don't know it? I said, no, I don't know what it is. They said, that's Spartan tea. I said, what's the story with Spartan tea? They said, you don't know? I said, I don't know. They said, oh, this was Hippocrates and Socrates tea. Bullshit. Yes, Joe, this was, oh, and by the way, the Spartan warriors would pick this plant, boil it. You got to boil it hard because it's hard to get the nutrients out of it. You got to boil it. They would drink it, and then they would rub the plant on their cuts and bruises to help repair their injuries. They said it translates from ancient Greek. This word, this tea, translates from ancient Greek to English to he is of iron. I am like, I want the whole fucking mountain.
Yeah.
All the tea. I will support the locals. I want this packaged and bagged. This is unbelievable.
Yeah. Perfect fit.
It's perfect fit. So we took the tea. It's a recovery product. You got to boil it. We also created an energy product because I wanted an energy product that would replace Red Bull, 700 calorie Starbucks drinks, the Bang, the Monster, just a pill. So if you're one of those people that would otherwise need some form of outside energy, coffee, whatever, you take this pill, no calories. 80% of the people I give it to, including my wife, anybody that takes it shows up the next, I feel like a drug dealer. I need more of that, Joe. It gives you tremendous focus, tremendous energy. It's great for an event. And then the third one was hydration. People at our races, I got 1.5 million people a year racing. They were carrying mustard packets with them, pickles, all kinds of ways to try to hydrate. And I was like, hang on, guys. I raced myself all over the world for 20 years. I got the product. It comes out of the medical field. They use it in hospitals. It's just electrolytes. It's time released. It's been around since the 70s. So I package that up. So I got hydration, I got energy, and then I got the tea.
Perfect.
Super simple. If you want samples, shoot me an email, joe@spartan.com. I'm not trying to sell you something you don't need. I feel weird even saying it, but it's epic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, you guys check it out. We could all use a little help on the nutrition side and getting more energy to be good dads. So I love it. Anywhere else people that can find you, Joe, that you recommend they follow along? I know you got
I got an
podcast.
Instagram. Yeah. At Real Joe Sena on Instagram. Check me out. I got Twitter. I don't know how to get on Twitter, but I'm on it. And yeah, that's what I do. My kids are on TikTok. I got to figure that one out.
Yeah. I think we all do. But Joe, I appreciate the time, man. Loved hearing your stories. I think that if nothing else, some of the dads listening to this can take away the resounding message of we gotta give our kids challenges. We got to make life hard on them in ways that is going to benefit them in the future. We're raising adults, not kids. So I appreciate you sharing what you've learned in your journey and what your experience has been.
You're awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Yes, sir.